Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthew North Music. As ever, if you like these sort of videos that I make, please think about hitting the subscribe button because it really does help. And if you find this thing interesting, then, hit the like. And, it's always good if you can share any of my videos on social media as well, because every little bit helps. Anyway, today is all about this absolutely beautiful piece of kit. This is a Sharp GF-9191 Boombox from the early 80s, and it's mostly in absolutely pristine condition. There's no broken buttons, there's no knocks, there's no damage. It's just got one little fault, and the fault is when you play a cassette tape, the take-up spool doesn't take the tape up. And today we're going to fix this. And firstly, we'll have a little look at it, and then I'll take it apart and we'll see what needs doing. I actually think these machines are the pinnacle of the great boomboxes of the 1980s, because not long after these were in production, there was a drastic change, and the change was they made twin cassette deck boomboxes. And by doing so and keeping them to a price, the quality kind of dropped a little bit. I mean, I had a GF-9191, which I thought at the time was the best that was around, but it was not as well made as this machine at all. Let's have a look at it. The controls at the top then, we've got a, we'll go for left and right, we've got a loudness control, fairly common on most audio equipment of the time. There's a light here for the meter that you flip down, and it also, I think it gives you a battery level indicator as well. It flips the VUs to do batteries. We've then got these two sliders here for our record levels. We've got our tone, bass and treble. No graphic equalizer, but then you don't need a graphic equalizer. They've always been a bit of a pointless exercise if you ask me. And then we've got our left and right volume controls. So instead of having a balance, you just have individual volume controls. Now, if we move over to the right-hand side of the deck, we've then got a power control here, which also, if you switch it on, it just goes into cassette mode, so nothing else will happen until you like press play or record or whatever. We've got a control here for the phono input on the front. We then have our radio tuners here, FM, shortwave, medium wave and long wave. So yeah, if you've got your record deck plug in, you push that in and it flips it to phono, otherwise it goes to radio there. We've then got a fader control with mic mixing, and what this enables you to do is you can plug a microphone in there and you could be playing a record, and then you could say, record your own DJ link. So you turn that around, you can mix the level and then go back, or you can use it live, so you can do your own sort of disco. And this has got two jack sockets in there, and I'm pretty sure that the second jack socket there will be for a remote pause control, which is quite often. So you could maybe say you want to do an interview with somebody, you can just pause the tape as you're doing it. We've then got this mixing control here. I'm not sure what that is, but I think it's something to do with this. So it might just enable or disable this fader control here. We've then got auto or manual record level, which is really, really useful. So you'd probably have it in auto level if you were doing your sort of mic recording, and then you'd have it in manual if you were recording a record, because then just set your levels here and off you go. So you don't get that horrible thing where when the music goes quiet, the volume comes right up, which is horrible. Then got our tape selection, which is Chrome, Type 2 or normal for ferric. And we've then got this this stereo button. Now we've got FM mute and mode as well. So what this will do is you can flip it into the mono position, which when using the FM tuner puts the FM tuner into mono, but you get far less hiss and noise, which is what you kind of want. Then we're in our stereo mode, and then we've got a stereo widen mode, which they used to call spatal back in the day, and it's kind of a phase thing. I think it probably just flips one of the speakers out of phase. Not something to be recommended with, really. On the front of the machine then, we've got our main driver here, we've got a tweeter here and a microphone there. And we've got our VU level controls here. We've then got the FM stereo sort of indicator there. We've got a forward and reverse direction here because it's an auto reverse deck. which is a really nice thing to have. And you didn't have a lot of auto reverse in the early 80s. And then over to the right hand side, we've got another microphone here, tweeter there, and main speaker there. I'm just going to tilt down to the bottom, and this is our phono input. So it's a standard 2 coaxial phono connectors there, and then you push this button in there for putting in your earth wire for the turntable. So the idea is you could actually have your record deck in front, which, you know, isn't a bad thing, although I kind of would have thought they would have been better on the back of the machine. And talking of the reverse of the machine, this is the reverse. And we got these sockets here. So you've got a 2 microphone input with a remote control. So it's one of them kind of doubles up as the same as on the front, except the difference is you can have the mics here on stereo. We've then got an I-out input output on a DIN socket. We've then got 2 old-fashioned DIN style speaker outputs. Now I don't know if they disable the internal speakers, they probably will. And then we've got this button here, which I think is an AFC beat cut thing. Yeah, it is. Never quite sure what that does. Or does that actually change the speakers? No, it's a beat counsellor, so it's got that in it as well, which is common at the time. And just up here at the top, we've got our UHF FM radio aerial plug socket. And these were actually quite common, these sort of connectors. You had 2 metal pins on the side here, and then you had a plastic pin in the middle as a locator. And I did remember having that on my Ferguson Music Centre, and I think on my Ferguson Cassette as well. So that kind of dates this really to being when it was from, which was, I would say, roughly about 1982, 1983, something in that order. Anyhow, the problem at hand is with the cassette deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to show you the mechanism and show you what's wrong with it. Here's our mechanism then, and if I go into, say, fast forward, you can see that it's running, but this belt here that's going to the tape can is a little bit not very good, and the auto stop belt is not great, but it is basically being directly driven by that wheel there. If we go the other way to rewind, then it's doing the same thing, except it's go direct drive the other way. And because there's no tape in there, there's no traction on the other way, of course, the auto stop's kind of kicking in. Now, if I hit the play button, then the auto stop section's running, but the take-up spool isn't running. And obviously, after 3 seconds there, it sort of stops anyway. Now, if I press it again, and I turn this wheel with my screwdriver, you can see I can now actually turn that wheel a little bit. It is engaging, but this isn't getting any movement. And the reason it's not getting any movement is under the capstan here, there's a little rubber washer wheel thing, and that turns this, that then turns that. And in there, it had all perished, and it was all full of like goo. And so that's why this isn't being driven. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take out the mechanism, we need to take out the capstan, we need to clean all the gunge and goo, and fortunately I have, that arrived in the post in this envelope, I have a replacement, one of these rubber sort of washery things. In fact, he's actually sent me 2 of them for the, well, we could call them idler tyres, although I'd really call that an idler tyre. But anyway, we've got 2 of these, so hopefully we can get one of those on, and this should all be good. But the first thing I need to do is to take the mechanism out. So the first thing I'll do actually is switch the power off, and then we'll take it out. What I've had to do here then is I've had to remove the tuning display just to get to these screws here. There's 2 screws here, there's a long one there and a shorter one there, and I think there's a screw here and a screw here. And hopefully by taking those out, I can then release the mechanism. Okay, I've just about wiggled this out now. I'm going to lift it up, and yeah, there's our lever in here that this connects into, so we have to make sure we sort that out properly. And also I'm going to give that a clean with some isopropanol alcohol, because this is actually the record, this engages the record, and it's very common for this to get a bit mucky, and it causes a really horrible rumble sort of noise on playback as well as record. So if that's cleaned with some you know, contact cleaner or whatever, then that won't make any more noise. Anyway, this is our mechanism. Now, to get the capstan out, And I'm going to feel the belt. Yeah, the capstan drive belt really could do with replacing as well. The guy who owns it didn't want the belts changed at the moment. He just wanted to see if I could get it to work. But you can see that's really loose. So I will say to him, I think you probably need to replace the belts. Although this turns out to be relatively easy to change. I think we're going to have to take these screws off here, these three here. That'll take that off. Then I can get my capstan out. You can always use it for changing the belt as well. The belts on the other side, this one just pops off. And the one for the counter, there's actually a little screw, I think, down here. And you have to take that screw out to take the counter out, and then you can rethread the belt. But as boom boxes go, this is actually one of the easiest to get at the belts, which is really good. But the first thing I need to do is there's a little washer, and the washer is, I don't think you can see it on the camera, it's just in there, and it's to stop oil coming out. It's like a sort of oil retention washer, and I need to gently prise that off first, and then I can get the back off. And then we have our culprit, all this horrible black gunge on here. So what I need to do now is to give this a good clean with isopropyl alcohol, as well as everywhere in the mech where this gunge has gone. And then we can put this back together. But also you can see on the flywheel here, you know, that's all filthy as well. So it all needs a really good clean, and I'll also clean the motor here. So at least then, you know, it will have some sort of serviceability. And there's nothing really flash to this. It is literally kitchen towel, isopropyl alcohol, and, you know, giving it a good clean. And, you know, we've already got most of it off. There's a bit of what could be, you know, rust or something on there, but it's gradually all coming off. Okay, now that's clean, I need to flip over and clean around the area where the capstan went. It's hard to get the angle right, but under here, which is where that wheel was, you can see this is where all the real mess and muck was. So you really do need to get this as clean as you possibly can, so that nothing sort of sticks to it. But I did get a lot of it out when I tried cleaning it first time around before I made the video. So we should have most of that out fairly soon. Okay, well, I've cleared as much of that path as I can. Now it's just a case of putting everything back together. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this back over. This is turned over, and I will put a drop, a tiny drop, which I'm going to have to use my glasses to see, just around here. And this is just oil designed for things like record decks and tape recorders. Bearing oil, they call it, synthetic bearing oil, and that really is what you need for a job like this. And you literally just need a tiny drop. Then we can pop our capstan in, and that's running nice and free. And then on the other side we need to fit our idler tyre, and this is going to be a little bit fiddly because I'm actually going to have to pop it in place and then push the capstan over it, and it should grip onto the capstan. And I may need to use a pair of tweezers on this as well. So I'm just going to pull it up a toolbox, because I say it's a fiddly job, this. So let's just turn this back around for a second, and let's see what we're doing here. And yeah, I can see where it's got to go. So I've got to kind of pull the capstan back. You can't really see this, to be honest. I do apologise, but it's a case of pulling the capstan back. I'll just rest it there a mo. And I'm holding this. It's like a game of Kaplunk. This. Grab my this. And we need to pop it in place, and it's actually going to be really difficult. I don't think I can do it with tweezers. I'm going to turn this off and I'll get back to you. Well, this is interesting. The capstan's actually now covered in more goo, as I suspected it might happen. So I'm actually going to put some more IPA on this, and I'm going to push this in and out of its little slot a few times, because obviously, because there's all this goo in there, we do not want that getting onto the So in fact, there's a little washer there as well that I don't want to lose, so I'll take that off as well. But yeah, you can see there's less goo now. I did kind of wonder if this might happen. But if you move it side to side, it will actually pull out more of the goo. So yeah, it's a good job I didn't actually put this in straight away. A bit less of it now. Because the problem is as well that, you know, you will get to the point where if there is too much of this black gunk in there, then it's going to seize up. But actually, that's moving quite well. In fact, it's moving a lot more freely than it was just now, although it wasn't too bad. But yeah, there's still more of it coming off actually. Yeah, more of this. Okay, it's a bit less now. Yeah, I think we've got most of it out now, which is good. Okay, so we're gonna put this back together again now. Well, good news, I've got it in place and I engaged the play button and it did turn around, so it's all in place now. So we've now got to put all this back together again. So I'm going to turn this around to where it was. I think, no, it was this way, wasn't it? Because we've got this solenoid at the top, which I think has to engage there. And there's a little thing here that goes in there. So it's got to fix into the hole there somehow, yeah. So it's all quite precise, this, but there are some markers. So oh, actually I can't put that in yet because I need to put the belt on, don't I? Okay, make sure that's in place. Yeah, that is. Okay, good. Right, I can now pop that back where it belongs here. Take the other thing wire out a second. Okay. Like I said, we've got 3 screws that go in. That's the one that came out of there. Oh, I see, I still haven't put that belt on, have I? Right, because that would be annoying if I hadn't put the belt back. So, as I said, we've got this nice and clean here. And I have reversed it actually around the other way just because it had that like crud on it. Like, oh, there's a bit of that goo. Oh, it's goo off my fingers. Yeah, that's the other thing. Got to make sure your hands are clean and goo free. If I'm just going to spray some alcohol on it because I don't want any of the goo that I've removed going back into the system. So yeah, that's gone. Right, now we really can put this plate back. Oh, and the solenoid's fallen out. Oh, okay, put that back in there. Pop its spring back there. Then we can pop that back in place. And yeah, because I think the solenoid's all part of the auto stop. I think it pushes this lever and then that releases things to go into the stop position. Okay, now I'm going to put this one in first, actually, on with the earthing point. And make sure that's in place there. Yep, that is good. So we do that one up. Then we've got our second large screw, which goes in here. And then our first large screw, which went in here on this plastic piece. Okay, and that's now all in place, and yeah, that seems to be good. And if I then push this into the play position, if I can. Oh, I can't engage the play. Why is that? Oh, it's because I probably need to reset the this thing here. Yeah, something not quite right. Oh, is it this? Oh, I think that might be in the wrong. That is in the wrong position. I just need to reset this. My fault. This. There we go. That's better. That's better. So now I can push the play button in. I hope. What do you think was that one? Was it that one? No, they're not going in now. Oh, I've obviously jammed something as I put this back in, or I haven't put this plate back on properly. Let's just redo this. Yeah, something not quite right here. Something isn't right. Does this unhook? Does this lead? That's what I mean about the yes, it's all working now. So yeah, I think I just had something in the wrong place. Although I think this has got some muck on it there. Is there something rubbing here? No, that's all free now, so we can put this back together. What is that? Oh, I see. This solenoid, of course, needs to go like that. That's how that's supposed to go in. And then that lever pushes against it. So that's probably what it was. I had the solenoid slightly in the wrong place. Okay, let's get that screw in. And well, button, yeah, buttons work now. That's good. And check that still moves. Yep, that's all good. And this goes in here. Okay, that's all in place now, and we can flip over, and if I press our play button, which should go in now, which it does, if I can turn the capstan, you should be able to see there. If I zoom in a bit, if I turn the capstan, then it's all moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put all this back together. Of course, typically it's only at the end I realise that there's this Molex connector here that goes to here that I should have unplugged, and then I could have just taken out the mechanism as it was. Not forgetting, of course, I need to give that little switch a clean as well. There's no tape in it at the moment, obviously, but you can see now our take-up spool is taking up as it should be. So I'm now going to put this all back together. Okay, I need another blunder. I couldn't get to rewind or fast forward properly, and that's because this piece of plastic clips into here, and somehow it had got unclipped. So if you get that problem, that's what you need to look at. Right, well, I've finally got this back together now, and there's a fair bit of torque on there for the take-up, so I would say that's now working. I can then hit the fast forward, and fast forward's still running, and rewind's fast, still running. So yeah, all is good. Now you might notice that when I hit rewind, the counter wasn't going round, but that's because the tape counter's on this wheel, not on this wheel, so it'll only change if there's a cassette inside it. Anyway, I'm going to now put this back together, finally. Hopefully I won't get a content strike on this, but rewind's okay, fast forward's okay, but when I hit play, so I'm just playing that because it hasn't got any vocals on it, so I don't want to get a content match. But we are getting a lot of wobble, serious wobble. Now, that is down to those belts being loose, particularly the main drive belt that's driving the capstan. If it's slipping, it's just going to go slow, which is what it's doing. So I've ordered a new set of belts for this machine, which I will replace, as I said earlier in the video. As if by magic, a couple of days have passed and I have a belt kit for this boombox. So we're going to get the mechanism out again and we're going to change all the belts, and fingers crossed we will then have a fully working cassette deck. Here's some belts then, and here's our mechanism. Now the fiddly bit is going to be the take counter belt, because this is kind of above onto here. But the take counter itself is held in with this screw on the underside. So if I undo this screw very, very gently, it should release the take counter belt. That screw's just fallen through, but it'll release the take counter belt. So take the take counter belt off, throw it over there, get our new take counter belt and flip it over onto its spindle, and then we don't need to hook it up yet, we just need to get this thing in place. So that goes into this little hole, little guide hole there, and then we tip the deck over again and we pop our screw into its little hole, and we then do it up to where it goes. Hold on a second, I haven't quite got that in the right place. If I do this, you probably see it a bit better. So yeah, there's our tape counter. And this has got a little screw hole there, so it needs to go into its little point, which is about there. And then that does up, so there we go. It's got its grip now, and so our tape counter is now in place. We've got our belt. It's twisted a little bit. Let's twist it back. There we go. And then that. Oh, I've got it clipped the wrong way around there, so I need to just undo that again. So if I just loosen that slightly, and then lift that open, pop that, tuck that underneath. Right, now it's in the right spot. Then we tighten it up. And then our tape counter belt goes to here. And it goes around the other side like that. Yeah. It's a lot tighter than the old one. And gives you an indication really of how poor the belts were. So when this turns now, if I just turn that freehand, see I've actually not got that in the right place again. That's probably why it's even tighter than it should be. Loosen that, slot that back in, there we go. So that's how it should be. So that's that tape counter belt in place there. Now the next belt is this one. Well, this is easy. All I've got to do is take that off, move it over there, get this belt. This is for the auto stop. Hook that around there, hook that around the auto stop, and job's a good one. Now I actually think that these two are the wrong way around. I've actually put the wrong ones on. So I need to take this off again, because this belt's a lot thinner. So I wouldn't have thought that would... Well, maybe that is for the auto stop. Because the auto stop probably doesn't need... I don't know, because the two that I took off... Which one was this? Was this the... Because this is thinner, actually. Let's just pop that on there. Right, okay, so I did put the wrong ones on. I wonder, because it did feel a little bit too tight. So, yeah, the thinnest belt is for the counter.
But that's no problem. As I said, it's only one screw. We take that off. I'm going to pop this straight one where it's supposed to go, which is on the auto stop. Even then, that feels a little bit slack, actually. But then the old one felt slack as well. So, yeah, I haven't mixed them up. No, I think I have. That is a bit slack, but then maybe it's designed to be a bit slack. Or the person I bought the belts off had just given me the wrong belt, which could always be a possibility, I suppose. Anyway, let's pop this back in its little slot. There's a little guide there for that to go in, and then our belt needs to go on the actual pulley properly. There we go. And then it goes in there, gets in a little slot. Okay, we've now got that in its place, I think. Pop the screw in, or the bolt I should say. Just make it loosely in this, and now we'll guide that into its correct place. There we go. Right, that's now in place where it should be. And it's got tension, it's not being fouled up anywhere, so that belt's in place now. Driving our counter, our auto stop belt, which does feel a little bit loose, but it's in place. So the only other belt we need to change now is our main belt here, and this is very, very loose, and that'll be why the tape is slipping. Now the replacement belt isn't actually as thick, but I'm hoping it's still going to be strong enough that it'll do the job. So we need to take these screws off. So there's that one there, this one here, and this one here. And if you remember, there's a solenoid on this mechanism, and then we don't want to lose anything from the solenoid. So I'm just going to lift this up gently, and I'm going to move it over to one side here. This is our loose belt, so we should take that off. I'm just going to turn this and make sure we got, yeah, that's still moving okay, there's nothing fouling that. I did wonder if some of there might have still been a little bit of gunge in there. There might well be, but it's obviously not making any problems at the moment. We then put on our new belt, and it's not quite in place. Lower that down a bit. There we go. Right, so that's in place now. That's a lot more, that's not slipping. There's no slippage there at all, so that's good. I'm just going to check everything else is in place, and it appears to be so. And with that in mind, I can now put this plate back on. Now, to put this back on, I will need to get our solenoid in place there. And then all of that's in place. So it's just a case of popping these 3 screws in. That one in there. This one in here. And this one in here with its earthing strap. And that's all our belts done. And so this should be good to go now. Now the only other thing we could look at is the pinch roller. But the pinch roller looks pretty good to me. I can't see any problems with it. Now, this kit did come with a pinch roller, and so I'm going to give this to the owner, and you know, if he ever decides he wants to change the pinch roller, then that's not a problem. But at the moment, that one looks absolutely fine. So let's get this inside the unit and have a little listen. Now I've done this a few times, it's actually a lot easier to do. As I said, our mechanism's all in one piece, and it literally just sort of slides in like so, and everything sort of fits into place where the screw holes are. And then we've got our 2 longer screws that go in at the front. So there's this one here, well, it's not quite, there we go, that goes in there. Then we've got another one on this side. And then we've got this little short screw that goes in down here. And this screw that's slightly longer that goes in here. And then we've got our 3 connectors to plug in. So there's this multi-pole connector here that goes under that piece of wire and slots in here. This I think is power and some of the audio, not all of it. Our head's going on this one down here, and then we have a ground wire that sort of tucks in underneath that you have to sort of look for, but I've done it a couple of times now, so I know exactly where it is. And just plug him in. That's in, and that's it. That's all in place now. So all I've got to do now is pop the top back on very gently, and also check the headphone socket hasn't come out, because that sort of sits in there free until the case is in place. But that's all good. Our tuning dial, that needs to be popped in, and then we just pop the screws in on the back, and we're good to go. Now I'm going to give this a quick test. As you can tell, there's no dial screen on the front, because I realised I hadn't put that in after I started putting the screws in. But then I thought, well, while it's there, let's just stick a tape in and see what happens. So pop a tape in, hit play. And it's playing perfectly. Oh, and the bass on it is amazing. Oh, that sounds fantastic. I can honestly say that's probably the best sounding boombox I've ever heard. Right, let's put it back together properly. Okay, now it's properly back together, and you know, as I said in the test, it sounds terrific. They're eating up the park. What's going on here? Why is it edge chewing something? Okay, there's a little bit of slippage actually on the pinch roller, so I am actually going to change the pinch roller as well. The pinch roller is actually held in just by a little clip, and the mechanism should slide out, so that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm not entirely sure if it will come out. No, it probably won't, so I think I'm going to have to push the pin. And I don't really want to have to strip the whole mechanism apart, so I think the pin will it'll sort of push down and then it'll push up again. That's the theory anyway. So we get a thin nose screwdriver like this. Will that push down? Yeah, it will. Okay. Need a thinner screwdriver than that, so I'll need a jeweler's screwdriver, I think. Okay, it turned out all I had to do was take the front off with a little bit of a squeeze. I've got the roller out, and then I'm just going to push this pin through with a screwdriver. And there's our old little wheel out. And then we get our new one, which I have in this bag. And then sort of hold that in place and push the new pin through, or the same pin but into the new roller. Make sure that's in place, make sure that's spinning freely, which it is, and then I'll pop it back in, and it'll literally just be a case of that I slot this in roughly where it came out. I need to push these springs back, let it slide in there, give it a little wiggle, and it should just go in. It's almost there. It's got to be very gentle with this. It's almost there. As it turned out, it fits in fine, but it was just easier to take this out to do it. So that's now in there. There's more grip now on the capstan, so I'm hoping that's stopped any other problems we're going to have. Right, let's pop this back together again. Okay, I've got a tape in here now, and I'm going to hit the play button.
There's something odd about his glove.
And yeah, it's playing perfectly now. That's all good. Hopefully we won't get a copyright strike for that. Now, I said earlier this was auto reverse because it had these buttons here, but it's not. It's actually a music search function. And for example, if I hit the play button and then I press the rewind, it'll go back to the top of the song and then it'll play it for you. And on the other side, if I press it again and I press the fast forward one, then eventually it will get to the next track. It has a little flashing light there as well to say that which direction it's searching, and then gets to the next track and it starts playing. That's Kamikaze, funnily enough, the song I've just released. Anyway, so all is good with this fine boombox, and I'm going to be now able to give it back to Alex and Joe, and they shall have a great fun listening to it. And hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Yeah, I've made a couple of minor boo-boos on the way, not changing things as I should have done, but then doing it. And you know, these things are old. You know, this is 40 years old. So I think from now on, whenever I'm doing any work on any form of cassette deck, I think it's prudent not just to change the bits you think need changing, but just to change everything. And that's what I've done here, and it's paid off because now it's working perfectly. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.